Hey violin people, by the time you watch this, it's going to be June. That means we have about 19 more days of school, and this is going to be our third to last lesson. We're really just going to spend the next couple weeks tightening up our grip on those brand new notes, B, C sharp, D, and looking at a few things to bridge the gap between pages 14 and about page 20. Which is where you would likely be picking up with Mrs. Hart with strings 2 when that's continued. So the first thing we're going to do is our play along with the D major scale. That's on page 19. And just like last week, we're going to do just arco today. Okay, 1, 2, ready, go. Alrighty, so our main focus today is going to be on page 15. Last week we did a Mozart melody all the way through, all arco. Today we're going to focus on a little bit of a shorter song. Number 44, about halfway down the page, it's called Matthew's March. Now, before we jump into that, there's a big yellow box right above that, and most of the time, when we see a box that looks like that in this book, it means one of a couple things. Either there's going to be an exercise for us to kind of practice the theory aspect of what we've been learning musically. Theory is basically just looking at written notes and identifying them, or looking at types of notes like quarters, halves, wholes, and showing what you know about them. There's also one at the top of this page about history. And the other thing they can mean, and that's the case with the one right above Matthew's March, is basically it's something you're going to see in this song, and you might not know what it means if we don't explain it to you first. So this one talks about something called a key signature, which is kind of new to us, especially because just the idea of sharps was new to us a couple months ago. Now, every time we've seen sharps up to this point, we have seen them right in front of the note. We've seen a sharp in the first space, and we've known that meant F was sharp. We've seen sharps in the third space right before a C to tell us that we were supposed to play C sharp. What a key signature does is it puts a couple of sharps right between the treble clef and the time signature right at the beginning of the song. That way, our music doesn't get too clustered. Even this example points up to that key signature and says, play F sharps and C sharps when you see this key signature. With all of these sharp notes, and if we put a sharp in front of every single one, our music would get a little bit crowded. This is kind of to keep that from happening. But it's also a reminder that every single C and every single F that we play in this song is going to be the sharped version, which is actually the only version you know, and that does make it a little bit easier. If we ever need to play a regular C, a regular F, there's going to be a symbol that tells us to do just that, but we don't have to deal with it today, so we're going to leave that explanation for another day. All right, so Matthew's March is in 2 lines, and like we tend to do when we have a brand new song, we're going to learn it pizzicato first, and then we're going to put an arco play along at the end. Most of what we have here, and the reason I picked this song, is there's a lot of work with both the high D, the C sharps, and switching strings, which is something that is hard, but the only way we're going to get better at it is by practicing, okay? So the very first measure is going to start by playing D, D, C sharp, C sharp, and it's going to sound like this. And then the next one comes back to D, and then lands us on that open A. So a pizzicato play along for the first two measures here. It's gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. D, D, C sharp, D, D, A. And then we have a rest there. Okay, and when we have the bow, that just means that we'll stop at that part, and the rest will kind of take care of itself. All right, the next part of the top line, we actually repeat the first measure, D, D, C sharp, and then we're gonna go D, B, A. A little bit of a tough looking measure because the notes are kind of far away from each other, but thankfully it all takes place on the same string, so we're not doing any of that switching that I talked about yet. I'm going to give you a play along for just this measure, D, B, A, and then for the entire line, pizzicato. Okay? So D, B, A, 1, 2, 3, 4. D, B, A. All right, the entire top line. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. D, D, C sharp, D, D, open A. D, D, C sharp, D, B, A. All right, and that takes us to the next line. The next line is going to switch strings here, but most of the action is going to happen with the four notes you know best. The open D, E, F sharp, and then G on that on the D string. Okay, now we're setting up with G, G, A, G. And that's a measure you're going to want to practice a lot. We have seen an awful lot of this sequence going back and forth between G and A, and needing to go from no fingers on the A string to all the fingers on the D string. Okay, so I'm going to give you a play along for this first measure. G, G, A, G. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there it is. Next one, it kind of does the same pattern. One note, go up a little, come back to the original note, but this time it's F sharp, G, F sharp, which means that we're just adjusting the fingers. We don't have to mess with changing strings. F, F, G, F. So now I'm going to give you a play along for the first two measures on the second line. G, G, A, G, F sharp, G, F sharp. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we're going to go, the pattern kind of continues, but instead of going up just a little bit on this next one, it actually takes kind of a big jump up. It's going to go E, E, open A, back to E, like this. Yeah. And then we end, and the only reason I'm not giving you a play along for just that one is because the last measure is pretty easy. It's just the open D 3 times with a rest at the end. D, D, D. Okay, play along for the bottom line. Starting on G, and we're ready to pick that open A as well. Starting on G, 1, 2, ready, go. G, G, A, G, F sharp, G, F sharp, E, E, A, E, D, D, D. That's it. That's all there is to it. Okay? So I'm going to give you two play-alongs. Pizzicato for the whole thing, then arco for the whole thing. So pizzicato starting out, we're going to set up on high D. 1, 2, ready, go. D, D, C sharp, D, 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 A. D, D, C sharp, D, B, A. Set up on G, 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 A, G, F sharp, G, F sharp, E, E, A, E, D, D, D. That's the idea. All right, we are going to try it with the bow, another play along. Around the same tempo, definitely not any faster, okay? Starting with high D. We're resting that bow on the A string, 3 fingers down to get the high D. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. And that's the idea. Like I said, 2 more videos after today, 2 more songs to kind of prepare you for basically the summer, because if you think that this is something you're going to do next year, and I would love to see as many of you as can participate in this, if you think this is something you're going to do, you want to keep playing over the summer. Even if you only break out the violin twice a week to play a familiar example, if you want to move forward, all of the stuff between page 1 and 20, and we skipped over a lot of it because there's only so much time, you have the ability to play. You know how to read the notes. You know how many beats each note gets. When you have the notes, when you have them with the bow symbols, the up bow and the down bow, you know exactly what to do with those. There's not a single song that you can't teach yourself how to play between page 1 and page 20. So challenge yourself. The more you keep these skills fresh between right now or between March and September, the more prepared you're going to be to jump right back in and start learning new things. And I'll say it again on our last video, I've said it a lot of times, anything you need, parents can email me, okay? Get in touch, ask me, I will get back to you as quickly as I can, and I'm happy to do it. In the meantime, be well, guys. See you next week.